All contents, including opinions and views expressed, are ours alone and does not necessarily represent the opinion of the City of Wilmington or its employees. The City of Wilmington has not approved of and is not responsible for the content of this podcast series. Thank you and enjoy the podcast.
Welcome to The Cop and the Shrink, a podcast exploring mental health, law enforcement, and societal issues from the perspective of a police officer and a mental health professional. Have questions about current events, social media, mental health, or police matters? Visit thecopandtheshrink.com. Let's get this episode started with your hosts, Harold Bozeman and Dennis Carradine.
All right, folks, welcome to The Cop and the Shrink. I'm the Shrink.
And I'm still the cop.
You're still the cop over there. It's been a minute. It has been a minute. You know, it's funny because in our lives, we just get busy. And I know that's not, we shouldn't use an excuse. We should, try to set up a time. But in all truth, how busy you are, how busy I am, how busy Denny is, it's tough. So we are back. We're back at The Cop and the Shrink. Make sure you follow us on thecopandtheshrink.com. And if you're on the interwebs, on Facebook, Twitter, our amazing TikTok at this point, my God, we're over 5,000 followers on TikTok. This is actually pretty fun stuff. Just go. It'll be at The Cop and the Shrink on each of one of those. So please follow us. So how are you doing? It's been a minute.
Well, I'm going to apologize in advance if I'm a little loopy today. I've been up since 3 o'clock this morning in Florida, and I'm still going. So
we are not taping in Florida. So
we are not taping in Florida. It is currently just about 10 o'clock in Wilmington, Delaware.
Yeah. It's a late night for us. So maybe this is probably good. It's kind of the torture test of the sleep deprivation and see how far we can get. Because I was struggling with a sick 8-month-old all day, and so we'll see how far we can get without like completely breaking down and either crying or laughing maniacally at something.
I mean, we've done our contributions for the sleep deprivation experiments in the past. I think we'll be okay for this one.
We should be okay. Hey, if you have any topics, anything you'd like us to cover, we're going to get in here regularly. You're going to hear our voices. You're going to see our faces. It's going to be great. But make sure you send us an email. Get onto thecopandtheshrink.com. So couple of topics today. I came in kind of like a fireball. I wanted to talk about a couple of topics. And
Like a wrecking ball?
Like a wrecking ball.
Right.
Oh, did you hear about Miley? No, off a topic or anything. Her airplane got hit by a bolt of lightning.
No kidding.
What was that? A bolt of lightning. literally got, and no joking around. That's horrible. They were on the plane. They actually had a video of it. And it was going through some turbulence, whatever it is. And for everybody out there that travels, understand turbulence is, Denny was so shocked he knocked things over. He was like, not Miley. Turbulence is a normal thing. You and I have been on planes with turbulence. And It's a normal thing, right? But people freak out. But apparently there was a little bit more turbulent structure on this. And her plane ended up getting hit by a bolt of lightning.
I hadn't heard that.
That is actually wild. So anyway, we're coming in like a wrecking ball. So a couple of topics. That already shows the sleep deprivation. So topic one tonight, I wanted to get into because one, I noticed a trend, and I also noticed it in myself. And you've probably noticed it in yourself at some point in time. Whatever it is.
And if
right?
not, I've noticed it in yourself.
In myself. We've all noticed it in Denny at some level. But we've noticed these things, and I noticed it a little bit broader this past week, kind of magnified this past week. So I wanted to have that first topic on masculine depression, but put the spin into it a little bit. Masculine depression as it applies to a type A alpha male, and how toxic masculinity is used to almost push the masculine depression. Does that make sense?
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it. Let's talk about this one.
Well, let me put a twist on it for you. In the world of first responders, in the world of public safety, it doesn't necessarily have to be the masculinity, does it? It's just about the expectation of the kind of personality that does the job.
Right.
So masculine depression, sure, that's our topic, but that could also hit the female members of our professions as well, because they are trained and conditioned and expected to react and respond to things in much the same way as their male counterparts.
True.
So they'll be masking the symptoms, and they'll be inappropriately compensating and everything the males would do because the expectations are there.
It is there. And 100% agreed. 100% agreed. We actually find that when, and we talk about this in the crisis intervention trainings, but very specifically in the veterans response team, that if you have a female that has been trained in the military or the armed services, they are more likely to strike out and to fight than the male counterpart, because they've had to almost hone their skills and toughen themselves to a point where their defense is very, very quick.
And there's almost that historic expectation, or that historic sort of drilled into them, that they must prove themselves. They must prove themselves worthy to be in a male-dominated profession or career path. And that's probably what contributes to that higher likelihood of lashing out. Like, I'm just as tough as you are. Look, I'll prove it.
Right. Now, I'm going to say this, and I'll preface this whole thing, that there's going to be people that are going to be listening to us. Thank God that there's going to be at least a few people listening to us. But there might be a few people that hear, toxic masculinity, and you get the pro and the cons of it, right? You get the people that are saying it's not a real thing, that this toxic masculinity is a bunch of BS. And then you have the other side that take it to heart, understand it, and there's still probably another side that are looking at this and saying, I fall in this category, but I don't feel that I'm toxic. So I think you're going to get this hodgepodge of thought and feeling about the term toxic masculinity. By definition of toxic masculinity, it is an encultured manliness, per se, an encultured manliness that is rooted in aggression, is rooted in domination, is rooted in certain behaviors that ultimately would create that quote unquote manhood, right? And so in toxic masculinity, I would haver to believe that this is more the male that dominates women, that dominates conversation, that tends to be more that narcissist that we had talked about before, possibly a sociopath.
Okay.
That's more the toxic masculinity, right?
Because I think it was Jordan Peterson that said, masculinity isn't toxic, it's necessary.
Right.
There are things that are masculine traditionally that drive the world forward, right? The men that are out there in the armed forces, the men that are doing the heavy construction, and the linemen and the utility work, and those are male-dominated fields.
Right.
And they're expected to be stronger, they're expected to be go-getters, and they're expected to be hard chargers. And if they weren't, these things wouldn't be moved forward.
Right.
So masculinity in and of itself is not toxic. And some people, and there are a couple of listeners who may think that all expressions of masculinity are, in their definition, in their view, toxic. But that's not the case.
Well, and and I think that's a part of what we're going to discuss, is that it's not the case that every masculine person or stereotype of masculinity is toxic, and not every toxic person has to show masculinity. It's that toxic masculinity has to deal with this sense of, being aggressive. Now, let's put the spin on it before we work back to the depression aspect of it. Please, please, please tell me one or two of the traits of a type A alpha person.
You think of, if you've watched Mad Men, you think of Don Draper, someone who comes in and with their presence and with their personality, they command the attention of a room.
They dominate.
Yeah, they will control the conversation, the direction, the topic of the conversation. They will talk over people if they're not getting their way. They will, with their physical mannerisms, stand over someone or get into someone's comfort zone, into someone's space, in an effort to control that room or to control that person.
So they're aggressive and controlling.
Right.
Okay. Are they toxic by doing that?
Depends on the context, right?
Right.
Don Draper, the character Don Draper, he's an executive. He's a salesman. He is expected to control the conversation. He's expected to drive his business forward.
Right.
So is it toxic, or is it an act? Is it his job?
Is it his way of kind of pushing that agenda to get what he wants based in whatever business, right? Because they were ad marketing at that point, right?
Yeah, ad men.
So when you look at that, we can say that alpha or that type A personality already is a more domineering theory, all right, or a dominating figure, pretty much, right? Okay. So give me the first two characteristics of a first responder.
First responders are there to control a situation, right? Whether that situation is medical for EMS, whether it's a fire scene or a crash scene for the fire department, or whether it's a crime scene or crime in progress or something of that nature for the police officer, they are taught to go in and take control of the situation. They arrive, they're in charge, they will direct how this thing unfolds, they will direct how this thing resolves. They are to control it. They're there as the fixers of whatever the problem is, whatever the crisis is.
And if need be, they have to
physically control through aggression, through a command presence, through a loud voice, right? They are there to control the situation, hopefully verbally,
right?
Hopefully with some command presence, but frequently physically.
Right. Females are going to do that as well, especially the first responder female will do that as well.
You see, I'm proud to say, you see no difference.
Right.
I have under my supervision more than 30 officers, and I see no difference in their willingness or their ability or their aptitude for going in and controlling a scene, whether it is with their presence or with their words or physically.
Are they toxic?
No, they're working.
So if they're working, they can't be toxic.
And I think we've talked about it before. I think that you start to see, if we haven't talked about it in here, we've definitely talked about it in some of our coursework. You start to see the problems occur when first responders take that need to control a scene and apply it to their home. Or apply it to the Wawa, or apply it to the line at the grocery store. When they start taking it outside the realm of what they're responsible for doing at work, and it carries over into their regular everyday life.
Right. You know, and if we go back to Batman, we go to Bane. I was born into it. You know, it's the idea is that nurture versus nature of how they develop this and why it comes out, and it starts leaking out into family, into other things, and we view them as the aggressor now. Now, this is where, and we're tying this all together, and obviously we're taking it into a certain direction of what I've seen. Now, masculine depression, what does that mean? So is there a feminine depression? Yes, there is a feminine depression. By very definition, there is a feminine depression, but we're going to focus more on the masculine depression. What is masculine depression at the end of the day? It is a series of events, behaviors, and thoughts more masculinated within the depressive cycle. So what does that all mean? All that, the series of psychological mumbo jumbo and all that. It basically means is that when a man is depressed, when a male is depressed about something, there are certain patterns of behavior that they're going to show in that depression that otherwise wouldn't be shown without that masculinity. Okay, so what we had talked about prior to the show, what I noticed personally, what I have seen. And I asked you the question, how do you know that, or how does a first responder get told by their spouse or significant other that they need to go into counseling? Now, your knee-jerk reaction.
I skipped a step.
You skipped a step.
I said they're notified by way of a process server from the family court.
And we want that 66%.
You pointed out that I skipped a step.
But only one step, and this step is actually about 2 seconds away from that step, right? It's the fact that, you know, and look at this, and this is not, I do not want to castigate anybody. I don't want to make anybody a fool. If you're out there listening to this, this is exceptionally serious, because if you are called this by your spouse and directly called it, not saying that you were acting like it, but you are this, my own personal, now, you know, this could be We could feather this out to 1,000 other therapists. We could do empirical studies on it or whatever it is. But my own little personal practice, when the first responder's spouse calls them an asshole, they are literally 2 seconds away from a divorce or from them leaving or from whatever it is. And let me expound on this a little bit. So cumulative stress, we've talked about it a bunch of times, right? And this is how all this ties together, and I want to make sure that people follow this. We are in a society right now that says there's toxic masculinity. And then we are told, not only is there toxic masculinity, but in our masculine depression and being type A and being alphas, that we are not to show feeling. Correct?
Right.
Okay? So whatever you have going on, don't show feeling. Don't feel it. Don't deal with it. Or you deal with it, but deal with it in a masculine way.
I think what's striking to me is that some of the same people who will say you're exhibiting toxic masculinity will call you weak.
Right.
If you express any of the signs of depression or sadness or concern for yourself or any of the other things that traditionally go along with some sort of mental health challenge, if you express that, then you're just not strong enough to deal. You're just not coping effectively. And some of the same people will say both of these things.
Right.
So what are men to do?
And that's the issue that we're coming up to. So cumulative stress, we've talked about over and over again, and now you have this wall. Now, we're of the same ilk. We're Generation Xers, and back then, boys don't cry type of thing. We've heard that all our lives, and we've been told that, again, that you have to be a man and suck it up. But don't be more of a man now, because ultimately, if you're more of a man, you're toxic. So
I was asked by a therapist, when was the last time I had a good cry?
Oh, yeah.
I was able to give her the exact date. And she was shocked. She was taken aback, to say the least. Like the exact date,
time, reason.
She was, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, just do this. No, I'm good. I remember the date.
Yeah, I'm good.
I'm good now.
So what's our other word that we use?
I'm fine.
I'm fine. In the back of our heads. And honestly, if you're out there listening to this, which we hope you are out there listening to it because it's late at night and we're trying to get something out. If you're listening to it and this is echoing in your brain as we're talking about this, like my spouse just called me an asshole, not that you're acting like an asshole, you're an asshole, then you have said the words, I'm fine. And in the back of your mind, I'm broken. I'm fine. Back of your mind, I'm damaged. I'm fine. Back of your mind, I got financial problems. The kids hate me. I hate my job. People put a target on my back. All this stuff. And you say, I'm fine. I'm fine. That would stand to reason, right?
Right.
So now that feeds into our masculine depression. So the hell do we do with this, right?
I really
don't know.
It's a tough situation, right? It's a tough thing to deal with.
Well, it's being told right now that if you are more feminine as a male, you are more accepted in our standards. But yet, it's almost that, break glass when needed or break glass in emergency. You cannot have a feminine male and tell them in times of emergency to show masculinity. Like literally, you can't have a potato and tell that potato to be a wolf.
Well, so as you're saying this, I'm picturing like training a dog, right? Not to equate men with dogs, although somebody will tell you that men are dogs.
Dogs.
But it seems similar to me that you're training, right? If you have a dog at your house and every time someone knocks on the door, the dog barks. So you start screaming at the dog. No, don't bark. Don't bark when someone's at the door. You swat it with a newspaper, whatever you do.
Right.
And they eventually stop barking when someone comes to the door.
Right.
And then when an intruder comes to the door and the dog lays there and lets it happen, you wonder what the hell's wrong with the dog.
Right.
No, it's you. It's you who have been beating the dog and instructing the dog not to react.
And now you want the dog to react.
Who is responsible for the dog not reacting when you want it to.
So you're doing something to somebody that pushes them even further. I put out on TikTok a couple of weeks ago that in our society right now, 84 men per week commit suicide. 84 men per week commit suicide. 75% of all the suicides in the United States are male. And I cannot cannot stop but think is this because of what the hell we're doing to them? And we're told you got to be a man, but don't be a man.
You're creating this conflict, and
Yeah.
it gets to the point where they don't know which way to go. They run out of options. They don't know how to deal with it. Their coping is overrun, is overwhelmed, and they run out of options. And they come to this last grim final decision, and that's where it leads us.
There's nothing else I could do, so why do anything except something that I have control of? And so we take it to the first responder, and then I want to bring it to me for a second because, well, it's my favorite topic, right? But no. So first responders, we look at it as we get home, the spouse calls us an asshole. Okay, you're an asshole. Here comes Mr. Officer, Mr. Firefighter, Mr. Paramedic, whatever it is, comes in. You're an asshole. The kids are afraid of you. I'm afraid of you. You're an asshole. Okay, you need therapy. That is literally one step away from we're leaving you or get out of the house type of thing. All right, so that cop, that firefighter, that EMT, what have you, goes to the first therapist. Okay, Miss Therapist X then throws out toxic masculinity and automatically portrays that image that this alpha male is now a toxic man. All right, so they stop going to him. You're really not going to sit there and let somebody berate you, which happens, right?
Right.
So then you go to the next one. The next one tells you, I have no idea how to work with first responders. My cousin's hairdresser's boyfriend was a volunteer firefighter back in the 80s, but I have no idea dealing with you. Okay, so they leave. They go to the next one. Okay, and now the next one, wants to put a fern on their head and dance around and do chakras and whatever the shit else is that's there. So eventually, that first responder that is depressed as hell, that is stressed as hell, that's told not to feel any of that, that's told that they are an asshole, their kids don't like them, the spouse doesn't like them. Now they've gone to these therapists, which, again, I'm not calling out my constituents, but I am.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, you could call them out.
I talked about this in an earlier episode. I talked about a cop that I spoke to one time who said that he went to a therapist and it was the intake session. He laid all the business out for the therapist, and the therapist said, "Your story has traumatized me. I can't see you. I'm going to have to refer you out."
Yeah.
So, that leads us to one.
That says right there, you're so screwed up that I can't listen to you.
Right.
That's crazy.
I'm so screwed up that someone with a PhD can't handle listening to my story. And that's one of my favorite things that the National Fraternal Order of Police is doing now. Right. And I hope the IAFF is doing the same thing or something similar.
Sure.
Or we'll invite them into our program. I don't care. But we have the trained, vetted, approved first responder therapies program.
Right.
And this is, in this way, we make sure that people aren't going to say to our officers, "Your story traumatized me, get out."
Right. Or your toxic masculinity is way too much.
Right.
Or you have to change who you are. Your wife is
right. Your spouse is right. You are an asshole.
You're an asshole.
You have to fix yourself.
So now what do? So now they go to the bar, right? And they're sitting around with other damaged, broken, depressed guys and gals that have just been told the same goddamn thing, right? And they're sitting around drinking and talking about this. Now, all these other people are on second, third wives. Kids don't talk to them anymore. The department is...
I feel attacked.
I'm sorry. We all have our practice wives. Sorry, brother. But I'm saying that ultimately it shows the cycle, right? So then what happens? So now we're feeling alone. We feel emasculated because we can't be men, right? Now, somebody out there, and let's be honest about this, somebody out in the viewing or listening audience is going to go, "Well, that's not right. That's not what it means." I don't care what it means. I care about what it does. You could tell me that a hat is a fern tree, and it still looks like a hat. And if you put it on your head, people won't say anything because it's a hat. If I put a fern tree on my head, people are going to say something.
So this whole idea of that's not what it means, that's part of what the problem is, because it doesn't matter how the person who said it intended it. It matters how it's received by the person who heard it.
Right.
Right? if people are droning on and on about toxic masculinity and the traits of toxic men, and they're going on, and somebody's identifying those things in
Right.
himself, then he's hearing that his masculinity is toxic and that there's something wrong with him. Regardless of how the sender of the message intended it,
Right.
it's how the person received it.
And when you receive it inappropriately, right, what happens? You literally are on that collision course. So two things, and I know we're going to go along with this section because I think this is a very important section before we get into kind of goals and success type stuff. So two things with this. We're also told not to act manly, right? And we have to kind of suck it up a little bit, right? And I was talking to a friend about this, that, you know, they had asked, we hadn't seen him in a while, and they asked about my wife's experience of being in the RV at the beginning of the COVID pandemic, right? So at the beginning of COVID-19, you know, my wife is a nurse practitioner. She was working at one of the Philadelphia hospitals, and she was told to quarantine herself away from the family, and we had to get an RV, okay? And so we had an RV in the driveway. It was like looking at The Boy in the Bubble. God, we're old enough that knows that John Travolta's one of his first roles was the boy in the bubble, right?
See, I went to Seinfeld.
It's
the
mopes. Okay.
It's the mopes.
It's the mopes. But so the sad part is that I would look into the RV, and Laura came home from dealing with death, and that's what they deal with. So that's another one. I'm going to go with everybody with this. If you're listening to this and you had one thought that COVID didn't kill people, okay, go get stuffed at this point, because it did. And I watched my wife go through this, you know, where you have a cardiac care nurse or cardiac resource nurse at the time, now nurse practitioner dealing with sexual abuse. You had her at the time that was zipping up body bags of people that were dying from COVID-19 in Philadelphia, right? And every night she would come home. The crazy part about that is that when she was in the city, they had people that were aggressive towards them. They didn't want to stand near the nurses. They didn't want to serve nurses food. The Uber drivers would bypass them. Taxis would bypass them and so forth if they saw the scrubs on the nurses. So not only are you dealing with death, but now you're thrown out by society. And now you can't come home to your family that's waiting for you. You have to go to this RV in the driveway, right? And I looked into the mirror one night and I saw my angel crying. And I mean like sobbing bad. As a man, what do you want to do?
You want to go out to the RV, throw the door open, and comfort your wife.
Right. And I'm not allowed to. How does that stifle masculinity? And is it toxic to feel that way, that I want to comfort her, that I want to hold her, that I want to be, oh my God, dare I say it, the man?
Her rock.
And we're told that's possibly toxic. That's messed up. So that's number one, right? And so I bring that out. And then the second part with me, and I think we've talked about it. So I got diagnosed October 21, 20? No, it's been a year. So October 20 in the pandemic.
20? Yeah, October of 2020.
2020. Got diagnosed with a unicuspid aortic valve, right? And so I had no clue. This was a complete thrown out, right? You know, and whatever it was. I had no idea. Went to established care at a PCP office, and then they told me, hey, by the way, you're going to need surgery like immediately. But because we're in COVID land, immediately meant February. Normally, what I found out later is that this surgery is done within 7 to 10 days after diagnosis because of how severe it was, right? So here I am, October to February. And I'm listening to what all these guys told me last week about their spouses calling them an asshole, right? So from October to February, I felt damaged. I felt broken. I felt messed up. And how did I respond? Like a man. I'm fine. I'm quick. I'm a little angry. I am sitting back, you know, putting on this mask. I'm good. We're all good. We're all good. What was that? Kevin Bacon, right? In Animal House. All is well. Calm down. It's all good. And literally, I'm dying inside, right? So now, snap forward, year and a half later, still felt damaged. Every time I kind of looked in that that mirror in the bathroom, I would see now the scar, right? Still feeling damaged, still feeling whatever I was feeling at the time. And then Laura said it.
You're an asshole.
She said, you're acting. Now, she said, you're acting like an asshole. That was one step in front of you're an asshole, which is 2 steps in front of I'm taking my shit and the baby and probably Denny and Melina. I don't think I would get the kids in the, like any of the kids. She would take all of them, even though the 2 of them are grown-ass adults. She'd take them. They'd go willingly. And I heard that. And I thought, holy shit.
Now, for me, the best part is she would sell me your house. So, winners all around. I mean,
thanks. I'll be in the RV in the parking lot here at the office.
I'll rent you the garage.
Thank you. It's a good garage. So, I heard that. And so when I'm hearing these men come up, these alpha men, that all 10 of them last week were all first responders, that had said that, unreal gut check. And so that made me start looking into this and saying, how does that occur? And how does that occur that quickly? And in all truth, it does. And you don't understand how it's coming along. So then that's not saying that all men now have to have this huge sensitive side that you always have to be in tune with your feelings, because I don't want you to be a potato. That's not what I want you to be. But you have to remember what you are doing and always be in tune with that behavior and also in tune with that feeling. Because that hallmark is you're acting like an asshole. You're an asshole. Here's the papers. Those are the 3 at the end of the masculine depression. Cool?
Yeah, man.
That's a lot. I was holding on to that stuff. It's been like a month or so. I'm holding on to all that. But that's, I think, very telling.
You've been holding that all in. That's adding to your stress. That's going to make you act like an asshole.
I think more with what I was holding into the fact that I know that all 3 kids would go with Laura at this point.
Could be.
They find her more cool than me. So anyway, hey, we're the Cop and we're the Shrink. Make sure you follow us on thecopandtheshrink.com. Stay tuned for topic number 2.
The Division of Wellness Services of the National Fraternal Order of Police is committed to leading the efforts to ensure the well-being of law enforcement officers. The FOP intends to no longer react to issues of critical stress affecting its members, but instead take a pre-act approach that is driven by trained peer support, research, empowerment of officers, awareness and stigma reduction, connections to service, and ongoing training and development. Information about the Wellness Division, resources, and publications can be found at fop.net/officer wellness. Donations to the National FOP in support of their Division of Wellness Services and other programs can be made online at nfop.firstresponderprocessing.com.
And welcome back to the Cop and the Shrink. Remember to follow us on thecopandtheshrink.com. Also want to give a shout out to our buddy Jim Wyatt. He is in our police service. If you're watching on the YouTubes, there he is. Make sure you go to his website, greatcigarreviews.com. He's got these cool, not only the t-shirts, but he's got these really cool patches that he's been doing, and he's been donating money to the Hospital Heroes Food Drive, has been donating money to the trauma survivors, and it's all based in what he calls the cigar and beer line of shirts and hats and patches. And if you are a cigar smoker and if you are a bourbon drinker, I definitely would check Jim's stuff out. He's pretty good. He is a third-generation police officer up in Pennsylvania, so real good guys. He's got an amazing stash. And Denny and I went to go see Volbeat and Ghost, and he has an amazing vest that has all of the bands that he's ever seen on it. So we're pretty excited about old Jim over there. And we'll talk about our other stuff, and make sure you hit our website, not just thecopandtheshrink.com, but obviously hit the Trauma Survivors Foundation.org and check us out here. So topic number 2.
Number two.
So we talked about at the beginning, we talked about masculine depression. We talked about where we get ourselves. So now let's get ourselves out of it, right? Let's get ourselves into goal setting. But before we get into it, let's talk about a roadblock in goal setting, right? The roadblock being is that maybe when you're looking at goal setting, career goal setting might be a little bit of an issue if you're a first responder.
So I think for the topic at hand, for the toxic masculinity, for the masculine depression, for the cumulative stress, things like that, I think we focus on personal goal setting. I think we focus on relationship goal setting, family goal setting, and things like that. These are the things that you, to some extent, have control over. These are the things that you can sort of drive the direction of. You can decide what goes on in your own family, unless your spouse has reached that you're an asshole point. You can fix things, and you can set goals for yourself for personal accomplishment and personal achievement. You can set goals for the betterment of your family and for the things you want to do with your kids and the things you want to do with your life and your finances. So I think it's important for us to have those goals, and I think those goals are far more important than career goals.
Right.
The reason being, and it's true in most professions, but I think it's especially true in the first responder professions, where there are tests and there are limited positions available for different things, and there is, I know people hate to say it, there is favoritism, there is nepotism, there are things that go on in the first responder world that can get in the way of your goals. You're not always necessarily in control of what you accomplish in your career.
Right.
You can control what kind of a cop you are, how productive and how proactive you are, and how successful you are at the job you are assigned to. You can control those things.
Right.
And you can be great in whatever position you're assigned to.
Right.
But if your goal setting involves achieving a promotion, achieving a specific rank, getting assigned to a specific unit or a specific task, those are the things that you often don't have a large degree of control over. Those things come down to test results and performance evaluations and as much as we hate to say it, personal opinion and popularity contests oftentimes control the way those things come out. So if you hang your hat on career goal settings, if you value yourself only on what you've accomplished in, and not just a first responder career, but that's what we're talking about here.
Right.
If you put your personal value and you hang your hat on what you've accomplished as a first responder in your career, and then you find yourself stagnated or you find some roadblocks in your way, that's going to affect your mental health. It's going to affect your self-esteem.
Sure.
That's going to cause some of that cumulative stress, some of that cumulative depression. So I would say for the people in my profession and for the first responders that are listeners, focus on your personal goals and on your family goals and on your financial goals, and let your career be where it should be. Let your career be secondary to your family. We're going to talk to the Police Academy this Wednesday about stress management, peer support. And one of the messages I always try to make sure I get instilled in these youngsters early on is make sure that as you go through your career, you understand that policing is what you do. And don't ever let it become who you are.
Yep.
Right? Don't ever identify yourself only as I'm Harold the cop.
Right.
Because if God forbid you're injured and you lose that part of yourself, or you're disciplined and you lose your career altogether, that's going to affect you much worse if you've completely identified yourself, your full self on I am a cop.
Right.
So we always try to tell them, the message we always try to make them understand on that day is that's fine for this to be what you do and be proud of what you do and do it well, but don't ever let it take over as who you are.
And 100% in agreement with that. You're absolutely right with it. I think it goes, and also look into the mental health world and all that, is that it's always funny. People believe that the epitome or that pinnacle of the mental health world is to have a private practice, right? You know, I'll have a private practice and have 100 therapists under me, and I'll make this huge conglomeration and all this great stuff. I will tell you, having had, folks under me was probably one of the most stressful career moves I ever did. Because you're basically herding a group of cats. You're trying to get people to make sure that they're seeing enough patients, that you're paying them, that you're doing this, doing that. And I think for some people that's amazing, but for other people it's I just want to be a therapist and help people. And so if you define yourself based solely on I need to achieve, whatever behavioral health clinic that I want to raise, I think you're missing the point of therapy. So I think in both realms they kind of stick together, is that, look, don't, just be your career, be where it needs to be. And if you're a person that has a private practice, if you're a person that likes doing teaching or lectures, or you want to do university, do the academic world, do that, but follow that career versus, jump into it.
I'll tell you, for my career, the more of that workday you bring home with you, the more likely you are to hear you're an asshole. So
it's a tricky situation. So let me ask you this: do you tell yourself every morning, every night, somewhere along the line, do you have your own mantra that keeps you going?
I don't.
Okay.
I don't. Nothing. I don't have a specific routine. I don't have a study mantra. I mean, I engage in some positive self-talk. I take some time to myself to just sit and veg, just to sit and think about me and think about what I'm doing. I don't have a mantra.
A little mindfulness is what it is, which is great. And I bring that out because mantras in and of themselves does not mean you're goal setting. It does not mean you're achieving anything. It means that you are attempting to...
Damn it, people like me.
Well, you're attempting to push yourself forward. You're attempting to motivate yourself, right? And you kind of think about it. And why I asked about mantras, I was reading an article recently about somebody. It was a Fortune 25, so 25 of the top CEOs in the world apparently have mantras that they tell themselves every day. And it's funny.
That's where I went wrong.
That's where it was funny, is that they didn't want to tell anybody their mantra. Okay, and I wonder what it is that it's, is it so incredulous that you can't share your mantra with us, and that's what apparently motivates them. But what you're saying, what I like, is that you take time throughout the day. You step back, you kind of reflect, you give yourself some time to breathe, you put in some positive energy into yourself, and that mindfulness. So it's funny, I read that article, and I started asking patients, do you have a mantra? No. And I was like, why don't you have a mantra for yourself in the morning? I don't know. And then I would ask, so throughout the day, and I no joke, no lie, I asked them, do you take time for yourself throughout the day? Do you take reflection time and what have you? No. and literally, it was almost like I was scolding them because I was just asking a question. And I never scolding them. And I said, it's funny. It's I do both. I have a mantra, and then I reflect at the end of the night or whatever. And they're like, really? I mean, it's almost... It's kind of like opening the gates of Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. It's kind of, you mean I can have all this? Yes, Charlie, this is all yours, and it's odd. And they said, where did your mantra come from? And I said, and what I said in the first section was when I looked in the mirror and I finally, got called that I was being an asshole. And I stood up and I looked at myself in the mirror and I said, you know what? You need to earn what you deserve. And so every morning I get up and I say, you need to earn what you deserve. And that means not just money-wise, but that means respect. That means loyalty. That means, love and whatever it is. Earn what you deserve. And that's become my little mantra. Now, for years now, and when I say years now, I, at the end of the night, have a little recorder. It's actually digital now versus I used to have those little micro tapes. It was bad when I had to do it in a boom box in the early 90s. But now it's just digital. And I got a 40-minute ride home, right? So I got this 40-minute ride home. And I talk into this digital recorder. Because I figure if somebody pulls up beside me and they see me just talking into the air kind of loudly, and me being Italian with all my hands going all over the place and all that, they might call the police on me thinking that...
I mean, in this day and age with hands-free phones and earbuds, they're probably just think you're having a conversation with your Italian mother and your we love you, Paula, with your hands and,
So I speak into this recorder, and I go through the day. I will MF the recorder sideways, you name it. I get home, I get in the driveway, and I erase it. It's basically doing the same thing. It's taking that moment. It's taking that reflection, downloading everything. Now, how does that deal with goals, right? The goal being is that how do you keep yourself motivated to be good to family, to be good to other people, and to ultimately be good to yourself? So how do you motivate yourself to do that?
How do you motivate yourself to do that?
Well, I said that. I just said I have my mantra.
I spend my drive home MFing other people, not myself or my day. This is why I've taken to to be honest with you, this is, and I've had this discussion with my family, this is my end of the day therapy. I used to drive Interstate 95 between Newark and Wilmington at both ends of rush hour.
Brutal.
And it was driving me out of my mind.
Brutal.
I found myself on the highway screaming at other cars and cursing the fact that it was taking me an hour and 15 minutes to drive 16 miles, and it was driving me out of my mind.
Right.
So as a matter of self-care,
right.
I started going the other way. I started leaving the city the other way
and
driving
through
home
New Jersey,
through the country, through the white clay forest, taking all the back roads home, coming damn near into Pennsylvania to get back to Newark. But
right.
That's my end of the day routine. That's how I let go of my day. It takes, if the highway's clear, I could be home in 15 minutes.
Right.
It takes me 40 minutes to drive home the way I drive home. But in those 40 minutes, I'm not in traffic.
Right.
I'm not at highway speeds. I'm not worried about what the next crash is going to tie me up for an hour. I'm driving through the country. Right. I'm driving through the forest. I'm by myself. But more importantly, everything is calm. And that's where I let go of my day.
What music's on?
What's heavy metal, like speed metal.
Speed metal.
Yeah, it's very calming.
It is. My God, It is. Like literally, if you listen to German speed metal, my God, for some reason there is this little click.
Just a little too host on the way home.
Yeah, it's a click that happens. It's amazing. So, okay, decompression, we ultimately gear ourselves up throughout the day, whether it's by positive reflection, giving yourself some time, a mantra in the morning, or at the end of the night, kind of decompressing and so forth. So something that I learned, and this is just kind of talking about the topic, because I think people get away from goal setting. They get away from the things that they ultimately want to achieve. And I see that a lot with policing. I see a lot with this, especially the fire service. I see a lot of that. And dreadfully, I see it more with the volunteer fire service, is that their goals are not necessarily about pushing themselves to certain limits. It's about staying within the certain crowd. And so I always say, look, you want to push yourself beyond your own limits and capacities. But by all means, if you just want to be status quo and that's all you want, God bless you. I think I had said that to somebody. I don't think we talked about it on air. I was on a separate podcast, and they had asked, what was the meaning to life? I mean, okay, to ask the shrink what the meaning to life is, right? And I said, there is no meaning to life. And they went, what do you mean? And I said, when we are born, we are just born into this world. Our entire meaning is survival. And I said, if you don't believe that, then you got to figure this out, is that we all die someday, right? That there's this really cool thing called, like life expectancy. And so male's life expectancy is up a little bit. We're at 78 years old. We're going to die one day. So our own purpose of life is to live. It's
and have as much fun as you can from one point
to the other point, right? So they had asked me that, and they said, well, so then what do you add on to it? And I said, we add on societal things. So we add on these things that ultimately tell us that we should work, we should make money, we should get out of the parents' basement, we should, whatever it is, we have to push ourselves forward. No, he's on his own. He's doing great. I will shout this out. I don't know if Denny's roommate listens to the podcast. I met my son's roommate, and James is an awesome guy. I am so happy for our little producer over there that he has an awesome roommate. So anyway, back to it. James, you're cool in my book, buddy. He was doing, hey, man, I had the kid doing some car bombs, so that was all right, the Irish car bombs. But anyway, so back to it. So when we look at all of that and we come in to say that ultimately society makes us do things, is it then okay to just get up in the morning, go to work, earn money, pay for a house, eat food, go home, crash on the couch, and then do step and repeat every single day? Take your 2-week vacation in the summer, step and repeat, step and repeat. The majority of people do that. No, seriously, the majority of people do that. Listen to Billy Joel, Allentown. The majority of people do that every single day. Is it something you and I will do?
Hell no.
No, hell no. So something that I learned way back.
We will fly to Orlando one morning and be at Epcot Center by 10 a.m. That's what we will do.
That's what we did. It's actually fantastical. So something that I learned, and this was way back. It was one of my first behavioral psychology classes in college. Dr. Pat Krantz. If there's any definition of a cool psychologist, Pat Krantz was a cool psychologist, right?
So he's the one.
Huh?
So he's the one. She's the one.
She was probably 800 years old when I met her, but she would drive around campus in this convertible turbo Z, this Nissan Z. You remember those damn things? T-top things on it?
That's all I wanted in 1993.
She would drive around in this, and she'd play like Gordon Lightfoot. She was just cool. She was just cool, It was just a cool woman. And she came into class once, and I'm the starry-eyed. I had just decided, hey, I'm going to
save the world.
That's where I started. Gwen in is wanting to be a medical doctor, came out, to be a shrink. And she came into this behavioral health class, and she goes, all right, guys, I'm going to give you these 3x5 cards. I'm going to give you these index cards. What I want you to do for the next week, every single day, I want you to write down a goal or 5 goals on the front of the card and how you accomplish those goals on the back of the card. 5 days. I was like, bet, got this. No big deal, right? So I go out, and again, in fraternity, sports, all this stuff. So, of course, what's the first thing? Wake up. There's my goal, right? Second thing, take a shower, right? Another thing was, hey, work out. Hey, talk to women, whatever it was. And that was my 5 goals. There were things I was going to do anyway. But what do I know, right? I'm 20 years old at that time, and I made these goals. So we go back the next week. This was in a lab, this behavioral health lab. We go back the next week, and she holds up a trash can. She goes, okay, throw them all away. I was like, oh, did we get the A? And she goes, you guys didn't fail. You did what you did, but I know what you did. You just made a to-do list. You were already going to do that shit. And I was like, don't, like the homework. Don't. So then she said, a goal is something, what I want you to do, these 5 goals, this goal is something that can be accomplished in 24 hours. It's not too difficult. It's not too easy, but it provides meaning and creates you a level of success.
And it's outside your routine.
That had hit me like Miley Cyrus's playing that Thunderbolt. It was like, oh my God, this was incredible. So since age 20, I have been doing that every single day of my life. Now it's on the phone. It's on, I'm not using the 3x5 cards because I would have killed an entire forest by now. But I do that every single day. And I think the goal setting, and some of these goals are pretty simple, like a pay it forward goal. Monday, tomorrow, one of my pay it forward goals is that I'm going to stop at a Wawa that I stop to almost every day. And I'm going to give the girl at the counter because I trust her and I know that she's going to do the right thing. I'm going to give her $20 and tell her to buy coffee to everybody that comes in behind me up until that $20.
I have myself and 4 sergeants to buy coffee for tomorrow afternoon. If you want to send those $20 to my Wawa app, I will let them know that you have
mission
paid it
accomplished. Mission accomplished. But it's that random act. There's a pay it forward act. There's goals that are about business. There's goals that are personal. There's goals about family, and then you have to accomplish them every single day. Okay. Now, patients ask me about this, and let's say I've told 100 patients about that. How many of them take it to heart and do it, do you think?
4.
0. They'll start it. They'll do it here and there, but then they just stop. Why?
You're the shrink. You tell me.
I know. I'm asking you these questions. It's not rhetorical. Whatever. What would make somebody not want to follow through with daily goals? Oh, this is easy. Come on.
Hopelessness.
No, this is easy. What do we think we have the most of?
Time.
Time, and we ain't got shit,
We
is
don't
what
have
we got. Look, we don't. We're finite beings.
So you can ask the kid next time you see her. Yesterday, I was trying to figure out if you and I were going to make it to Zephram Cochrane's first warp flight. And we're not. We're going to miss it by a couple years.
Damn it.
If I make it, I'll be 91. So
That's potential.
we're not
My
going to
heart
get to see
surgeon
the
says
age of Star
I'm
Trek.
going 95, baby.
We're not going to get to see the start of the age of Star Trek. We're going to miss it. It's 2063.
Damn it. Damn it.
If Roddenberry's correct in his timeline,
It could be. Could be. But you think about it. We think we have time, so we don't commit these things to ourselves every single day. Am I barking up the wrong tree?
No, you know what? Now that you say that, yeah. Because everybody says, well, I can get to that tomorrow. I
Right.
can get to that tomorrow. And you're going to run out of tomorrows.
Right. Very quickly.
And-
Very quickly. Which we're going to start kind of talking about that in our current events, too, of how we run out of time and how some people have manipulated it a little bit. But, we don't pay attention to ourselves every single day. I'm not saying I'm the best at it. I am far from the best at it. But I've committed to those 5
You
goals.
can try again tomorrow.
We can try again tomorrow, But I think But I think that's where we jam ourselves up with goal setting. We jam ourselves up with motivation. We jam ourselves up to have that belief that we still have time, right? How many take that blink and then they go, oh my God, I've been 15 years on the job, and I don't know if I like it or not. Or you've done something for 30 years, and you retire, and you're not happy. Something's wrong with that.
I mean, I've had a blissfully happy 17 years on the job.
Yeah. All those 17 years. There's been a few in between. So, final advice, be mindful every day. Set some goals every day. Give yourself a little mantra at the end of the day. Go against your routine. Do something nice for yourself. Decompress.
And take care of the things that you have control of and stake in. Take care of yourself and your family and your kids and your money first. Worry about your career goals where they belong, at work. And if you don't meet all of your career goals, don't let that screw every other aspect of your life up.
I like that. We say word to that. Word. All right. You're listening to The Cop and the Shrink. You've seen their faces and read their stories. Our hospital heroes and first responders are remarkable, and their strength is inspiring as they continue to work around the clock in the fight against COVID-19. Our mission is to show these frontline workers that we support them through the simple act of providing them with a prepared meal. For a $6 meal donation, you could help a hospital hero in a struggling restaurant stay focused and positive through the COVID-19 pandemic. There is a light at the end of the tunnel, but we still need your help to see our hospital heroes through this fight. Our heroes are why we do what we do, but you are the how. Text Hospital Heroes to 44321 to donate a meal to a hero. Please visit us at hospitalheroesfooddrive.org to learn more about our mission. Welcome back to The Cop and the Shrink. We were just talking about something. She's going to see it after I finish this, but there is a little, I think it's a TikTok thing. But you start sending to your kids, you start sending lyrics to a song, and you see if they catch on. So I'm sending my daughters up at Penn State right now. So I started, I'm getting into my phone right now. It's actually freaking hysterical. So I started the conversation with, they say Spain is pretty, though I've never been, and she writes back, oh, and it's just going to go because she's going to have no idea what the hell I'm talking about. Or no, I don't think, no. That's, I think that's Daniel. Oh, shoot. I know it's an Elton John song. Anyway, now I'm going to mess it up. I'm going to say it's Rocket Man, whatever. Hi. Welcome back to The Cop. Hey, do us a favor. A couple of things that you want to do for us, and because we know that you love us and you like us and you want us to continue, help us with creative content by going to thecopandtheshrink.com. Make sure you send us an email. It's right there. You could suggest a topic, suggest the show. whatever it is, we're going to listen to it. We're going to run with it. Send us a comment. Also, make sure you go over to the TraumaSurvivorsFoundation.org. We got a couple of things out there. We now, thank you, have Knob Creek Bourbon dedicated to the foundation. We had a barrel that was
Nice,
that we picked, and we have it ready. We're waiting for back labels, which are dedicated to the hospital heroes. Once that's out, there's actually an event that we're going to be doing on April 21st. It's a Thursday. The event is going to be Sipping for the Survivors. So it's up in Wilmington. You can check it out online, or you can reserve yourself a bottle. But also make sure you get in there and go to Wagon House Winery. And Wagon House Winery has the Captain's Punch. Or go to drinksurvivors.com and get some coffees. We got it, and as always, we thank our friends down at Big Oyster Brewery who produced Survivors IPA, which is supposed to come back out as a hazy New England IPA.
Sweet. Very good.
Sweet. So that's all of us. So make sure you go and check us out. Creative content, always good. And make sure you check out the TikToks. We're doing the bizarre and strange laws, which some of them are hysterical. Like, oh my God, like literally hysterical. Like a woman in Delaware, I'm just throwing this one out. This one's great. A woman in Delaware is not supposed to go to a bar and get drinks bought for her.
I don't know if it's still on. It was part of Wilmington's city code. Yeah. Within the span of my career, they called them B girls. I think the code actually called the city code actually called them B girls.
I called it my worst dating experience ever, is what I called it. Because all they wanted was a damn drink from me, and I thought they liked me. That's kind of what they say at the strip clubs, I think.
So here we are in our current events, right?
Current events.
And it's, we've gone back and forth about whether the current events should always be topical downers.
Yeah.
But in this case, this is something that's important for us to talk about. It's important for society to hear about.
Right.
And this week's topic is kind of a downer, right?
It is a downer.
Within the last week, we lost 2 Pennsylvania state troopers to a crash on the highway. Mm-hmm. The at-fault driver was driving under the influence. Mm-hmm. And to add the tragedy of it, the story goes that they had stopped her.
Yeah.
They had stopped her for suspicion of DUI, but they pulled away from her to go attend to an emergency on the highway. And it was that emergency they were attending to when she reemerged in their lives and struck them and the person they were helping and killed all 3.
So she was twice her legal limit. So they were all within their rights to stop her the first time, but because the gentleman was on 95, was on the highway itself, they thought that was more of a thing and told her, I don't know exactly what was said, but did not completely let her go. They just had to go get this guy that was dodging traffic on 95. We still don't know the story of that. Right. So she came through the intersection, or came through the stop. I don't want to say intersection.
But through their scene.
Through their scene. Seemingly, how they said, and it's clear as day on cameras, the video is out now, that she swerved into them. Meaning almost like she aimed for these 3 people, hitting with enough force that knocked all 3 of them from the southbound lane over the railing into the northbound lane. It was a tragic, absolute tragic scene. So now here's the problem. Our society demonizes the victims. And why do we say this? Prior to her driving drunk, she had tweeted out, "I'm the best drunk driver in the world." That came out, right?
Right.
So that came out, and there was people in support of her saying, well, 21-year-olds do this. 21-year-olds make mistakes. 21-year-olds blah, 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 blah. Okay?
Well, let's check on that. When you were 21, how many DUIs were you given? How many?
0.
Danny, how many DUI convictions do you have?
I have none.
So
No.
I have none. I was not
You don't have any?
ever stopped for driving drunk when I was 21 or
No.
22 or 41.
Yeah, no. Well into our later years.
Making excuses like that, oh, she's 21. Well, I know plenty of 21-year-olds who don't drive drunk and have never been arrested or stopped or even suspected of driving drunk. Right. So I know plenty of 21-year-olds and I know plenty of 51-year-olds
right.
who in the span of those 51 years have never been stopped for DUI.
Now, the crazy part with this one is that we're not even talking about what her attorney has said. We're saying what was put out there in social media and media of saying she's 21, she made a mistake. I don't know if I believe that. I think a mistake is something a little bit different than murder, because this is going to be what, third degree vehicular homicide,
It'll
correct?
be a vehicular homicide.
DUI.
But that charge takes into account the intoxication,
Right.
because the getting intoxicated is an intentional act, right?
Yeah.
The knowingly getting into your vehicle and driving intoxicated is an intentional act. So you're responsible for everything that happens beyond the turn of that key.
Right. So for her tweeting that, I'm the world's best drunk driver, or what have you, and then ultimately killing people with this, is this a 21-year-old making a mistake? I say no.
No, I say it's an adult who in every way, under the laws of our nation, is an adult responsible for herself,
Right.
who made a series of decisions on that night that led to this tragedy. It's not a mistake. It's a series of bad decisions that she was responsible for making.
Right. So now let's go to her attorney. Her attorney comes out, and I think the attorney was that, what's that, shyster, or whatever the law firm.
Do we cheat him and how?
Do we cheat him and how, and whatever. So this man comes up here on television. Number one, I don't know. If I get in trouble with the law, I never want my attorney to go on TV and say something incredulously stupid. I wouldn't want that, because that would make me feel even more foolish, right? So that would be my thing. So he comes up and says she's very remorseful of this happening, but she should be allowed to get out of jail because her 22nd birthday is next month.
Oh.
Are you effing kidding me? Did you actually say that, Mr. Man? Did you actually say that on television, that she's very remorseful? So sorry for killing those 3 people. I am so sorry.
Who won't have any more birthdays.
Who the one, not, the names are public and so forth, but the one trooper's wife is pregnant. So that son or daughter that he'll have will never ever meet him, will never celebrate a birthday with him. She's 22 and needs to go out. And what would she be doing on her 22nd birthday?
Driving drunk.
Maybe milk and cookies, right?
What strikes me is that
that
same phone she tweeted that ridiculous statement from,
right,
probably has the Uber app installed on it already.
Right.
She made a series of shitty decisions.
And so when you make those decisions and people come out and support it, of saying, oh, it was a mistake, then I think ultimately you are demonizing the victim. You're not saying what this is. It's like our society right now. It's like, look, you could do the worst thing in the entire planet, but as long as you have an excuse and you say you're sorry, you should be okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've heard it said already. What were the cops doing standing in the roadway? Why hadn't they blocked it with their cars? What was that man doing up there anyway? Sure, let's ask questions of the 3 deceased.
Right.
Let's ask about their conduct and not about the conduct of the person who killed them.
So now you go a little bit, you dive deeper, because they dive deeper in her Facebook, and dive deeper into her IG account, into her Twitter account, and guess what was in there? You'll never guess.
Bunch of anti-cop rhetoric?
Hate the police, too. A lot of anti-cop. So not only did you say that you're the best drunk driver in the world, and that you hate police, that you just killed 2 police officers and an innocent kid. I think he was 22, 23, but yet we should let you out for your 22nd birthday.
You can have a celebration.
So you could celebrate. F you. Right? And I truthfully, I don't care if this isn't a political thing. This is a human thing. Is that ultimately you are sending such the wrong message for supporting that. Such the wrong message for supporting that. Now, the DA up there, I was blown away. Literally blown away, because this is somebody that, has proven himself to be anti-cop for a long, long time at this point, but came out and denied bail. Asked for it, denied bail, keep her in there. And then they did a continuance, so her trial is now April 5th.
Is it an election
Or
year
no,
in Philadelphia?
It might be. It might be. I was blown away by that. But that goes into, okay, do we demonize the victims? And I say, yes, we do. So you had come up with one here in Delaware. I came up with one in Philadelphia. I'll let you go with yours. How do we demonize the victim? Talk about your person. You forgot.
I forgot.
Okay, I'll talk about my
Let's talk
person
about your
first.
person.
You think about your person. The person that went to on yours was the person that was the last person on death row.
Yes.
You're getting old.
I am getting old. I told you, I've been up since 3 a.m.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I've
That's
been
true.
up many
That's true.
hours now. So, we talked about her making a 21-year-old's mistake.
21-year-old
right? Making a mistake, and then people framing it as a mistake,
Right.
as opposed to framing it as decisions.
Right.
And I could talk about this case because it happened
widely
in
known.
1992. All of his trial rights have been exhausted. All of his appeal rights have been exhausted. He's still sitting in jail. He was the last person that Delaware had on death row before they ended the capital punishment in Delaware and they commuted him to life. He was in the process of making an 18-year-old's mistake.
Mm-hmm.
He and a friend were burglarizing a home a couple miles north of here.
Mm-hmm.
They were burglarizing a home. The homeowner came home and caught them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the bad decision-making came into play. This is where they started making decisions as opposed to 18-year-olds' mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
18-year-olds break into a house, you're going to steal a TV, fine, take the TV and leave, right? They get caught in the act, but they're already out of the home. They're in the driveway of the home.
Mm-hmm.
They get caught by the homeowner, and instead of running into the nearby woods, which were very close to her home, and disappearing into the nearby woods and taking a chance on getting caught for this burglary and getting probation because you're 18,
Right.
they made the very adult decision to murder this woman in her driveway.
And keep in mind, they could have easily just gotten away.
She was older.
Yeah.
She was nowhere near their physical match. They could have just run away.
Yeah.
And they made a decision. So that, for me, illustrates the difference between making a mistake
Right.
and making life-altering decisions. This woman in Philadelphia, maybe she can claim she made a mistake right up to that point where she was stopped by the troopers, but that should have been her wake-up call.
Right.
I just got stopped. I'm drunk. I got away with it. They left. I'm going to make better choices. I'm going to park the car here. I'm going to get on the Uber, and I'm going to get home.
Yeah.
I'll pick the car up tomorrow. She could have made those decisions, but she made very different ones.
And so that goes into, again, demonizing the victim, right? Is ultimately you make a mistake, that's one thing. We all make mistakes. We're human. We make mistakes. But making a decision is a total different thing. And I brought up Danny Faulkner's case, Mumia Abdul-Jamal, that this was a guy that killed in cold blood Danny Faulkner, officer, killed Danny Faulkner, cold blood. He was prosecuted. He was found guilty by a jury of his peers, true peers, found him guilty of this.
He's been given, somewhere around 57 appeals or something?
It's a ridiculous amount. And eventually, we can't ask Danny Faulkner what happened because he's dead. He's dead for doing his duty. And the whole thing is that Danny never got a shot off. Mumia killed him in cold blood, period. That's how it is. But because in our society, because we have, I don't know, certain music groups or actors or actresses, which, screw them. What the Oscars are going on tonight or whatever it is, wow, you're the greatest pretender in the entire planet. Does Josephine ever pretend to be somebody every now and then? Does she put on a costume during Halloween every now and then to pretend?
Yeah, and she's good at it.
Yeah, I think she's amazing at certain pretending, right? So here's people that we are literally applauding you, giving you money for pretending to be somebody. When the hell did you get the ability to have a voice to say that a cop killer should be set free? That drives me insane.
And we're hearing this from people who were nowhere near Philadelphia in the 80s.
No.
Who have no idea of the substance of the case. They know what they've been told by the activists. They know what they've been told by the media. And they're hanging their hat on, oh, this must be the truth because this is what I heard.
Right.
And so they come to support. And right now, look, let's be honest. To our listening audience, to the world beyond, right now, it's really, really popular.
Oh, yeah.
Really, really popular to hate a cop.
Right.
So, I mean, this Mumia thing started to gain traction in the 90s, early 2000s, and it was the cops were still pretty okay with people at that point.
Right.
Like people were pretty okay with the cops. That is, if that had started now, who knows? Mumia might be walking around free.
Right.
If this whole movement had started in times like these.
Right. Right.
But even so, the reason he continues to be supported and these people continue to speak out, these celebrities, these great pretenders continue to speak out, is because it's popular.
Right.
It's popular to speak out against the cops. It's popular to dislike or hate the cops or outright disdain the cops. And so that in the end, they may or not be sincere about these thoughts. They may be calculating that this is going to make me a more popular pretender. Right. This is going to be more fans for my make-believe.
Right. And ultimately it blew me away with the great pretenders that ultimately wanted to do this. And we joked around with Susan Sarandon, which I think, one of the great American pretenders, actresses, right? She came out total support for Mumia Abdul-Jamal. And I thought to myself, are you pretending right now too? Is this an act? Are you pretending? Or have you pretended to get a law degree? Because in your IMDb, there's nothing that says you have a law degree. I mean, maybe we won't be able to say that about Kim Kardashian a little bit later, whatever. But the idea is that you don't know what you're talking about. You weren't around. You weren't here. And then, and damn it, take away the Beastie Boys for me. I love their music, right? I love their music. And all of a sudden, they're standing up to the masses in concerts saying, free Mumia Abdul-Jamal. They were not in Philadelphia during that time. And so they read something.
They were in
somewhere.
Brooklyn getting no sleep.
Yeah. They had to fight for the right to party. No one anywhere. And the only thing that they read was publicized by, guess who? Mumia Abdul-Jamal, that wrote a book that said, I didn't do it.
Right. And OJ wrote a book that said, if I did it.
If I did it.
It's kind of the same thing,
well,
right?
But that was the crazy part, even with OJ, is that everybody knew he did it, and it was so slanted. And then ultimately, at the end of it, it became this race thing, right? It came out that, oh, yeah, OJ's acquitted, black man's acquitted, and all that. So he walks away, and okay, fine. Then it comes back with him getting civilly sued, loses that big time, right? And then he had to spend time in jail because this innocent man that has been searching the golf courses for the true killer, literally, what was it, kidnaps and beats up?
He robbed a sports memorabilia place in Vegas.
Yeah.
Robbed it because they were selling OJ memorabilia and he claimed he had the rights to it, so he beat people and robbed it and stole his stuff.
Because he's such,
because he's such a gentle giant.
So you could read whatever anybody puts down there. I'll write stuff down right now and say it. Last time I checked, I wrote it down. I think it's right here. I'm president now. I wrote it down. Now I'm reading it. So it's got to be true.
Well, at least one of you is aware of it.
So what? 95% of the internet is completely fabricated. The other 5% is just filled with lies. So again, ultimately we're looking at situations where people are making decisions. They're making decision that destroys other people's lives, but yet we demonize the victim. You shouldn't have been there. You shouldn't have done this. You shouldn't have done that. I know you've probably been on scene. I know I've been on scene as a volunteer firefighter. You've been on scenes as a cop where people blow through intersections and blow through crime scenes and blow through shut down areas because they feel they are more important than anybody else and they need to get to wherever they need to go.
But I'm running late.
Right.
But too bad.
Right. But don't you know who I am? I love that. But do you know who I am? Well, who are you? Doesn't matter. Or you could always answer, I'm the Batman.
I remember making a lady, and this is 20 years ago. She may be listening. I don't know. I remember a lady asking me that one time on a scene. Do you know who I am? And I said, Madam, the mayor of this city pays me pretty well to not give a damn who you are. I'm to treat everyone the same.
Yeah. You gotta
and that made her angrier than me just saying, no, I don't know who you are. Like, that made her angry, saying she was going to be treated the same as everyone else.
Well, I had a conversation about this, and not going totally off topic, but it'll come back to it. I mean,
we do it.
We do it anyway, whatever. Squirrel. So I had a conversation about this, about where people are within the way they think about themselves. So ultimately, what you see in certain societies is that you see the entitled rich, right? Like the rich is so entitled that because they have money, they feel that they could treat everybody poorly. Not all, but that kind of mentality, that entitlement. But then you have the ultra poor. The ultra poor, as they grow up, gather things, and it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. And then you have the breakouts, whether it's in sports or entertainment or whatever it is, and you don't see them being charitable at all because it's all mine. You look at the newest levels of music where they talk about gathering things and money and so forth, is that when you have that type of mentality, then you doing something, making that decision to do something, is not necessarily foreign to you. It's just how your mindset is. Now, I don't know how this 21-year-old grew up. I don't know her backstory, nothing like that. I can't presume that. But let's take it a step further and say she did grow up poor, and that mentality was, this is mine, it's about me, I don't care about anybody else, I'm gathering. Then for her to do that and come out and say, well, shouldn't I be able to celebrate my 22-year-old 22nd birthday, would make absolute sense.
Right.
Because that's what she was born into.
So the question becomes, how does this thing I did impact me?
Right. And so it is a nuisance to me. Is that crazy?
Are we allowed to use the word crazy?
Well, twisty, I think. I don't know. Is that odd? Twisty. So anyway, bottom line is that, we gotta start respecting each other a little bit more. We gotta look at what truly is. There are definitives in right and wrong. The Roman Empire used to say, you want to take down a society, all politicians and all attorneys go first, right?
Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say it was a 21-year-old's mistake.
Right.
Should you not still pay for that mistake?
You should.
Right?
You should.
I mean, you've made a mistake, and you're young, you're 21, you've made a mistake. You should still somehow suffer some consequences for that mistake you've made. And the reason for that is, the reason there are laws, the reason there are penalties, the reason there's punishment, is to dissuade you, to discourage you from making that mistake again.
So guilty with explanation, is that what we could say?
That's what we say internally, but I don't think that applies to the criminal justice system.
We gotta figure this out, and I don't think we will in our little dashes in life. The poem, The Dash. There's that first number and that second number, and whatever you do in between. I think we're living pretty gloriously in our lives. And these are things that are going to go beyond us. We've said that before, that there's never going to be a unifying approach of how to deal with PTSD. There's never going to be one singular ideal set that this is how you work with PTSD. That'll never happen, or whatever it is. There's not going to be one unified approach into policing or into fire or whatever it is. There's never that. It's not going to be in our lifetimes. Maybe, if Gene Roddenberry is correct, it'll be at the Star Trek level, but not in our lifetimes.
No, there are too many variables. There's not going to be one answer to all life's psychological questions. There's not going to be
working on it.
One perfect way to police the citizenry. There's not going to be, fire science is ever evolving. There's not going to be a perfect way to fight a fire. We have ideals. We have standards and guidelines. We have our books. We have our training. But every once in a while, and by that I mean once a week or so, you run across something that's not in a book that you've ever read.
Right.
Or in a minute of training that you've ever attended.
Right. There's always the uh-ohs.
So.
There's always the uh-ohs. There's always that guy that if you ask him if he's suicidal, pulls out a gun on you and says yes.
How are you going to do it? With this?
With this weapon right here. There's always something. Thank you, my friend. This was a good one.
We had a good talk.
You allowed me. This was all pent up rage and aggression for 6 weeks now. So, again, we're going to get back at it. We just got to get our schedules all set up. But please, thank you again for listening. We truly appreciate your comments. We appreciate the texts and the phone calls to make sure we were okay. Big shout out, one of our guys out there, and I got a shout out, Tony Gagliardino. Tony, we love you. Thank you so much. He's our Texas listener. So, and Tony's up from Wilmington. He's a great guy. He's a paisan. He's a good fella. We love our Tony
He's
out
a
there.
friend of ours.
He's a friend of ours. So T, thank you for listening. Thank you for the text messages. We'll get this all together again. And folks, remember, check us out on thecopandtheshrink.com. Go to the traumasurvivorsfoundation.org and check out the interwebs. We got some cool stuff out there, and we will chat at you soon. Thanks.